The room fell silent, tension gripping everyone like a vice. Suddenly, my mother-in-law's face twisted with rage, and without warning, she grabbed the cup of hot coffee from the table. In one swift motion, she hurled the scalding liquid across my son's chest. His painful scream pierced the air as the burning coffee soaked through his white shirt, leaving angry red marks on his skin. Chaos erupted, but what happened next, what followed that moment, was even more shocking. Hello, my name is Eliza Carter, and I'm 39 years old. As I sit by the window in my living room, the soft light from outside glimmers on my wedding album. Every time I flip through its pages, I can't help but sigh. 13 years ago, my life was filled with promises of love, stability, and mutual respect. At that time, I believed those vows would protect us from any storm. My husband, Ethan Carter, and I got married in a small, picturesque church in Brentwood, surrounded by family and friends. The floral decorations, the soft melody of violins, and the scent of fresh roses are memories that still linger vividly in my mind. Ethan had just launched his tech company and was brimming with dreams of success, while I had recently started my residency as a pediatrician. As we exchanged our vows, Ethan's warm smile reassured me of the future we were about to build together. But standing across the reception hall, his mother, Linda Carter, wasn't smiling. I remember the cold, calculating look in her eyes as she approached me that day, questioning, "Will you continue working as a doctor after marriage, Eliza?" Her tone wasn't curious. It was critical, as if she already disapproved of my answer. I had no idea then that this moment would mark the beginning of years of tension, judgment, and resentment. 13 years have passed since that day, and I've built my career brick by brick. After years of hard work, I became the head of the pediatrics department at Brentwood Memorial Hospital last year. I love my job. The smiling faces of children I help during daily checkups have been my driving force. But Linda Carter's disapproval never faded. "You'll never understand what emotional damage a child suffers when their mother is constantly absent," she would say, her words dripping with judgment. As a retired school principal with decades of experience shaping young minds, she firmly believed that a mother's place was at home. Her daughter, Marissa, was her perfect example. Marissa, a stay-at-home mother, lived her life according to their mother's ideals. She didn't miss a chance to flaunt her superiority when it came to raising her 10-year-old son, Noah. "For me, raising Noah is everything," Marissa would say during family gatherings, her voice full of pride. "Being present every day is what makes the difference." She made sure to highlight the fact that I wasn't as present as she was in my own son's life. When my son, Ryan, was born, I hoped the dynamics would change. At the hospital, I watched Linda hold him for the first time, tears streaming down her face. For a fleeting moment, I thought this could be a fresh start, a chance to put aside our differences for the sake of family. But that hope quickly crumbled. Instead of becoming a bridge between us, Ryan became the focal point of Linda's criticism. Every weekend, she would come over to teach him piano, drawing, and basic Spanish. She adored Ryan, but she used every lesson as an excuse to undermine me. "Ryan's doing so well because of my guidance. Imagine what more he could achieve if you dedicated yourself to being home more," Linda would say. Her words stung every time, making it clear that she didn't see my contributions as a mother, only my absence. Marissa often joined in, her jealousy growing over time. Noah wasn't performing as well as Ryan academically, and Linda wasn't shy about pointing it out. "Noah needs to work harder," she would say, often in front of Marissa. If I were his mother, I would push him more. Marissa's resentment toward me became impossible to ignore. She didn't just resent my success, she resented Ryan's achievements. And though Ethan noticed the tension, he rarely did anything to ease it. Whether out of loyalty to his mother or a fear of confrontation, he remained a passive bystander, occasionally offering me a look of sympathy, but never stepping in. As time went on, the family dynamics worsened. Linda showered Ryan with praise, using his achievements to further criticize my role as a working mother. Every high test score, every award Ryan brought home, became ammunition for Linda. But for Marissa, it was salt in an open wound. Noah was struggling in school, and no matter how much Marissa tried to help him, he couldn't keep up with Ryan. Linda's comments didn't help either. "Is this really the best Noah can do, Marissa?" Linda would say, shaking her head in disappointment. "You're home all day. You should be able to help him improve." Marissa's frustration boiled beneath the surface. At every family gathering, I could see her biting her lip, her hands fidgeting whenever Ryan's name was mentioned. It was as if every praise for my son was a personal attack on her parenting. Then came Linda's 65th birthday. The family gathered at her home in an upscale Brentwood neighborhood. The smell of catered food filled the air, and guests mingled in the spacious living room, sipping drinks and chatting over lobster rolls and pastries. Ethan and I arrived with Ryan, who carried a gift, a carefully handmade card with an oil painting of Linda's favorite church, surrounded by blooming flowers. He had spent weeks working on it. "Happy birthday, Grandma," Ryan said, holding out the card with both hands, his face beaming with pride. Linda's eyes softened as she took the gift. "Oh, Ryan, this is beautiful," she said, gently stroking his hair. "You're so talented." She opened the card, revealing a heartfelt message he had written in perfect cursive. "I love it. Thank you, dear." Ryan's face lit up, but I noticed Marissa's reaction. Her smile faltered, and her eyes flicked toward Noah, who was sitting silently by her side. As the evening progressed, Linda requested that Ryan play the piano for the guests. He performed a piece effortlessly, his fingers gliding over the keys, and the room erupted in applause. Linda clapped the loudest, her pride obvious. But Marissa sat rigidly, her fingers digging into the armrest of her chair. When Ryan finished and returned to my side, I saw her glare at him before quickly masking her expression. The jealousy in her eyes was undeniable. Then, without warning, Linda's voice cut through the chatter. "Oh no! My ring!" She stood abruptly, her hand grasping her bare finger. "I can't find the ring I inherited from my mother." The room fell silent. Linda looked around, panic settling in her features. "It was here earlier. It's my mother's ring, a family heirloom. It can't be lost." Ethan rushed to her side. "Are you sure you were wearing it the whole time?"
"Yes."
"I remember having it during dinner," Linda replied, her voice shaking. "Everyone, please help me find it. It must be somewhere in the living room." The guests began searching the room, under the sofas, around tables, and behind curtains. But the ring was nowhere to be found. Linda's anxiety grew with every passing minute, her face flushed and her breathing shallow. Then Marissa whispered something into her mother's ear. Linda's expression changed instantly. Her gaze darkened, and she slowly turned toward Ryan. Linda's eyes locked on Ryan, cold and calculating. Her voice, once gentle, turned sharp and unforgiving. "Ryan," she said, her tone heavy with suspicion, "did you take my ring?" Ryan's smile vanished, replaced by a look of shock and confusion. "No, Grandma. I didn't take it," he cried, his small voice trembling. But Linda wasn't convinced. "Don't lie to me," she said, her voice rising. "You're the only one who's been near the table where I last had it." Before I could speak, Marissa stood up, crossing her arms as she glared at Ryan. "Mom's right. You've been showing off all evening, trying to be the center of attention. Maybe you thought taking something valuable would make you feel even more important," she said, her words venomous.
"No."
"I didn't take it." Ryan's face turned pale, his lips quivering as tears welled up in his eyes. I stepped forward, placing my hands protectively on his shoulders. "This is ridiculous," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Ryan would never do such a thing." Linda ignored me. Her anger intensified, and her eyes darted to a paper cup sitting on the table. Before I could react, she grabbed the cup of hot coffee and flung it at Ryan's chest. Ryan screamed as the scalding liquid soaked through his shirt and burned his skin. The room erupted into chaos. His white shirt turned brown, and angry red blotches spread across his chest as he sobbed uncontrollably. "You little thief!" Marissa shouted, stepping closer. "I knew you weren't as perfect as everyone thinks." Tears streamed down Ryan's face as he clung to me. "I didn't do it, Mom. Please believe me." His body trembled, and I could feel his small hands gripping my arms like a lifeline. I knelt down, cradling him in my arms. "I believe you, Ryan," I whispered, trying to comfort him. "I know you didn't do this." Adam finally spoke, his voice filled with desperation. "Mom, stop this. Ryan would never steal from you." He rushed to grab the first aid kit, but Linda wasn't done. "This is what happens when a mother prioritizes her job over her family," Linda spat, glaring at me. "Working mothers like you fail to raise honest children." Her words pierced through me like a dagger. I had endured her criticism for years, but this was different. My son was in pain, and no amount of her harsh words could be justified anymore. I stood up, anger boiling inside me. "I won't let you do this to him," I said firmly. "Ryan is innocent, and I will prove it." At that moment, the doorbell rang, and 2 police officers entered the room, their faces serious and authoritative. "Is there an Eliza Carter here?" one of them asked. "Yes, that's me," I said, holding Ryan close. "We received a report of an assault on a minor," the female officer said, her gaze scanning the scene. She noticed Ryan's tear-streaked face and the coffee stains on his shirt. "We'll need to take a statement from everyone involved." The female officer introduced herself as Detective Claire Bennett. Her sharp eyes quickly assessed the situation: the coffee-stained shirt, the burns on Ryan's chest, and his tear-streaked face. She motioned for her partner to begin gathering evidence. "Let me check the burns first," Detective Bennett said gently, kneeling beside Ryan. "Can I take a look, buddy?" she asked softly. Ryan hesitated, then nodded as I carefully pulled his shirt away from his chest. His skin was blotchy and red, with visible patches from the scalding coffee. "These burns are significant," the detective said, snapping photos for documentation. "At this temperature, it qualifies as assault." Her voice hardened as she stood up, facing Linda and Marissa. "I'll need to speak with everyone, but first, we're taking photographs and collecting evidence." Her partner carefully gathered the spilled coffee cup and examined the stains on the floor and Ryan's clothes. Linda's expression shifted from anger to discomfort as the gravity of the situation dawned on her. Then Detective Bennett turned her attention to Noah, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, avoiding eye contact. "Noah," she said, her tone firm but kind, "can we have a word?" Marissa immediately jumped in, defensive. "Why do you need to talk to my son? He didn't do anything." Detective Bennett raised an eyebrow. "Standard procedure. We need to get statements from everyone." "Noah, would you mind coming with me?" Noah fidgeted, glancing nervously at his mother before nodding slightly. He followed the detective into a quieter part of the room. As they began talking, Marissa shifted uncomfortably. Her fingers tapped nervously against her arms, and she kept darting glances in their direction. Suddenly, Noah's voice broke through the quiet murmurs. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Mom told me to hide Grandma's ring." The room fell silent. Linda's mouth fell open, and she stared at Marissa in disbelief. "What did he just say?" she whispered. Mom made me do it," Noah stammered, tears streaming down his face. "She said if I hid the ring, and we blamed Ryan, Grandma would stop favoring him." The weight of his words crushed the room. Marissa's face went pale, her lips trembling as she struggled to find an excuse. "Noah, stop talking," she hissed. Detective Bennett stood up and crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. "Marissa, I'm going to need to check your phone." "You can't," Marissa protested, stepping back defensively. The detective remained calm. "We have probable cause, and a warrant will follow if necessary. Hand over your phone." Marissa hesitated, but when her gaze met Linda's wide, horrified eyes, she knew there was no escape. Slowly, she handed over the phone. Detective Bennett scrolled through the messages, stopping when she found the incriminating evidence. She began reading them aloud. "This time, I'll make sure Ryan's reputation is destroyed. I deserve Mother's attention, not him. She'll finally see that Noah and I matter." Linda gasped audibly, her hands covering her mouth as Detective Bennett continued. "I'll slip the ring into Ryan's bag or under his seat, somewhere easy for them to find it. Then everyone will know he's a thief." Tears streamed down Linda's face as she whispered, Marissa, how could you do this? Marissa finally broke down, sobbing. You've ignored Noah for years, she cried. You acted like Ryan was your only grandchild. I just wanted you to see us. I just wanted you to love Noah the way you love Ryan. Linda stepped back as if she had been slapped. Detective Bennett, meanwhile, remained focused on her job. Marissa Thompson, she said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs, you are under arrest for conspiracy, incitement of child abuse, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. As the handcuffs clicked around Marissa's wrists, Noah wailed, clinging to his father. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't want to do it. Marissa sobbed as the officers led her outside. Her final words echoed through the room. I just wanted my family back. Linda sat on the couch, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered, What have I done to my family? After the police left with Marissa in custody, the house felt eerily quiet. The once celebratory atmosphere had turned cold and heavy, as though the weight of everything that had happened was suffocating us. I sat on the sofa with Ryan in my arms, his head buried against my chest. His sobs had quieted, but his small body still trembled. Adam sat beside us, his face buried in his hands. Eliza, I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have spoken up earlier. I should have stopped this before it got this bad. I looked at him, my heart heavy but not ready to assign all the blame to him. We can't change the past, Adam, I replied softly. But we can protect Ryan from here on out. Linda, who had been sitting silently, finally spoke. Eliza, she said, her voice cracking. She hesitated, as though the weight of her guilt was holding her back. I didn't see what was happening. I didn't realize my favoritism would push Marissa to this point. Her eyes, red and swollen, met mine. I was so focused on Ryan's achievements that I neglected my own daughter. I'm so sorry for what I've done to Marissa, to you, and to Ryan. Her apology was sincere, but my heart was still aching. I wasn't ready to forgive her completely, but I nodded. Ryan is the one you need to apologize to, I said gently, brushing a hand through my son's hair. Linda knelt beside us, her voice barely a whisper. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I love you, and I never should have doubted you. Ryan didn't respond at first, but then he lifted his head slightly and nodded. His trust in her would take time to rebuild, but for now, this was a start. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Marissa pleaded guilty to conspiracy and child endangerment charges. Given the evidence, she was sentenced to inpatient psychiatric care, where she would undergo long-term treatment. During her psychological evaluations, doctors diagnosed her with an attachment disorder and deep-rooted feelings of inadequacy stemming from childhood. The court allowed supervised monthly visits between Marissa and Noah, but custody was awarded to her husband, who was determined to help Noah heal. Meanwhile, Linda began seeing a family therapist. She admitted that her unrealistic expectations for both her daughter and grandson had contributed to the toxic family dynamics. I'm ashamed of how I treated you, Eliza, she said during one of our family therapy sessions. I thought that being a working mother made you less of a parent. I was wrong. I appreciated her efforts, but it was Ethan who surprised me the most. He became more involved in our family, making sure that nothing like this would ever happen again. I've learned my lesson, he told me one night as we sat together in the living room. I won't be silent anymore. I'm going to be the husband and father you deserve. A year later, things had changed significantly. Marissa was still undergoing treatment, but reports of her progress were encouraging. Noah, who had been seeing a school counselor, was beginning to recover from the emotional trauma. Ryan's physical burns had healed, and although he was back to excelling at school, the emotional scars took longer. He still asked questions at night. Why did Grandma think I was bad? Why did Aunt Marissa do that to me? I reassured him every time. None of it was your fault, Ryan. You're a wonderful boy, and we're so proud of you. Linda had transformed. She no longer imposed her expectations on Ryan and instead showered him with genuine love and support. Sundays had become a cherished time when we would have brunch together as a family, talking and laughing without the weight of old grudges. As we sat in a cozy cafe one Sunday after church, Ryan turned to me and asked, Mom, do you think we're stronger now? I smiled and wrapped my arm around him. Yes, we are, I said softly. Through pain, we had grown stronger. The family that had once been torn apart by jealousy and favoritism was slowly healing, step by step. As we left the cafe that morning, the winter sun shining down on us, I couldn't help but feel hopeful. We still had a long way to go, but this time we were moving forward together. Thank you for following this emotional journey of family, forgiveness, and healing. If you enjoyed this story, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribing for more stories. Your support means the world to us, and we look forward to sharing more meaningful stories with you.
See you in the next one.